Good morning and welcome to Streetsville. My name is Jeff Nevin. I'm the CEO of Indwell, and we are pleased to welcome this morning the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, and the Honourable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, along with MPP Rashid, MPP Kazeto, and MPP Zimbabwe. And Councillor Butt has joined us as well this morning, so thank you, Councillor. We welcome you here today in front of a building here that we're very proud of and excited about opening. Indwell is a Christian charity that develops and operates supportive housing. And we operate this housing from Mississauga all the way down to London in southern and southwestern Ontario. And we currently are housing and supporting over 1,200 people living in poverty due to often disability. This, just to give you a sense of where you are and what's going on here, the program behind us will open next year and become permanent supportive housing for 40 people. A multidisciplinary team will provide enhanced healthcare and housing supports tailored to goals of each tenant. I'm so excited by this project and the 40 homes that will become safe spaces for vulnerable people to thrive. When I think about if you come back a year from now and get to meet some of the folks who are moving in here, you recognize immediately that things have changed. And I think about this, Premier, the folks who are moving in here literally will be able to, as they cross the threshold, they'll be able to take labels like homeless, and they'll be able to throw those down at the threshold and walk in and have a new identity at the very point of entering into these housing units. And so we're thrilled to be able to welcome folks into housing, and we appreciate the partnership and support of all levels of government, and today we especially appreciate and recognize the support of our provincial government in making this happen. Together we can solve homelessness. Together we can create what we call hope and homes for all. And so I'm going to hand this over to, I think that's the Premier from here.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you. Well, I think it's actually, we got that mixed up. I think you're up. Are you not, Clarky?
Sure.
Okay. That's all right.
We're a team, Premier. We're a team. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm pleased to be here alongside Premier Ford and our fantastic partners in the housing sector. I'd first like to acknowledge the incredible work that Associate Minister of Housing, Nina Tangri, is doing on the Community and Supportive Housing file. And although she is unable to join us today, her work is really reflected right here in her own backyard in Mississauga. So thanks everybody for joining us today, my colleagues in the legislature and in the city. As Ontarians face the rising cost of living and a shortage of homes, our government was given a very strong mandate to help all Ontarians find a home. Supporting the mental health and well-being of people in Ontario is a key priority for our government. We know that we need a comprehensive and a connected mental health and addiction system that offers high-quality, evidence-based services and support. In 2020, our government made a commitment to invest $3.8 billion over 10 years to meet the demand. This funding fills in the gaps in the care continuum and helps to connect community, primary, and acute care to better meet the needs of people with mental health and addiction issues. We've also, as a government, invested nearly $4.4 billion over the past 3 years as part of our Social Services Relief Fund to enhance and grow community and supportive housing to address homelessness and also to respond to COVID-19. And through this fund, I'm pleased our government was so pleased to support this project and provide funds right here in Streetsville. Our government has been making real progress on tackling the housing supply crisis. Under the leadership of Premier Ford, we're going to be building at least 1.5 million homes by 2031 by closely working with our partners in the housing sector, like Indwell, and with each community across our province. I want to thank Indewell Community Homes, with whom I've had the honor of working on several projects across the province. They're fantastic partners. And now I'd like to turn things over to the Premier to make the exciting announcement today. Thank you so much, everybody.
Well, good morning, everyone. What a beautiful day it is today, and thank you, Minister Clark, for that introduction. And I'm thrilled to be back here in the great city of Mississauga and in the community of Streetsville. I just met with the BIA, and I want to, again, welcome Councillor Butt, Councillor Parrish as well is here. And, you know, and I want to mention about Nina. I went over to the BIA. They absolutely love Nina Tangri and said she's doing a fantastic job, and I agree. You know, along with Minister Clark and Rashid, as I mentioned, we have the two councillors, but we also have our all-star MPPs, Rudy Cazzetto and Sharif Sabawe, and along with Councillor Khalid Rashid, Minister Khalid Rashid. There you go, my friend. I also want to thank Jeff Nevin and the whole team at Indewell for your partnership on this project and for all the great work that you do day in and day out, helping to build affordable homes for people right across this province. And thank you. And Jeffrey, by all means, take that same idea and spread it right across our province. Friends, Ontario is growing at an unprecedented rate. They're the fastest growing jurisdiction in all of North America, bar none. Last year alone, we added more than 500,000 people. And at these rates, Ontario will grow by more than 5 million people over the next decade. To put that into perspective, it's like putting two cities of Toronto, plopping down right across Ontario. These are staggering numbers that didn't exist just a few months ago. That's why it's never been more important to deliver on our commitment to build at minimum 1. Failing to act would affordability crisis. In particular, young families and newcomers in search of the Ontario dream will see home ownership slip further away as they are locked out of the housing market. And our most vulnerable will continue to face housing instability. Failing to act would hurt everyone in Ontario by driving up the cost of goods and services and by hampering new job creation and investments. Failing to act would threaten to erode our unwavering support for immigration at a time when our economic successes depend on welcoming skilled newcomers to fill critical labor jobs. As Canada and Ontario welcome more people, we need to build more homes of all types, including a mix of ownership, rental, nonprofit, and supportive housing. To do so, our government is the first in decades to have a real plan to build more homes. Our Housing Supply Action Plan has set ambitious targets for growing cities and municipalities like Mississauga. It has cut costly red tape while reducing municipal fees and taxes on purpose-built rentals, as well as affordable and attainable housing. Through our transit-oriented communities, we're planning for density right next to transit. We're unlocking lands to build 50,000 new homes that will be home to 150,000 people, and they'll be affordable. That's the same as adding a city the size of Welland or Belleville. And after decades of stagnation, we're starting to see results against challenging headwinds like higher inflation rates. We had the most housing starts in over 30 years in 2021 and 2000. This is momentum and a step in the right direction, but as our province grows at an incredible speed, we need to do more. That's why last fall we announced $4.5 million in capital funding to help build Indewell Streetsville, right here behind me. When complete, this new complex will include 40 supportive housing units. And today, we're pleased to announce that we're investing an additional $270,000 in operational funding to provide residents here with the rent supplements and mental health and addiction support services. This funding is part of the $425 million over 3 years that we announced in our spring budget for mental health and addiction services. We also added another $202 million to our homelessness prevention and Indigenous supportive housing programs, bringing our total funding to almost $700 million a year. Together, these investments will help some of our most vulnerable people, providing them with a place to call home and an opportunity for a better life. Friends, previous governments, they refused to build the housing we needed, and as a result, we're currently facing a housing crisis, decades in the making. We have two choices here. We can sit back and ignore Ontario's housing crisis like previous government, or we can build more homes. Homes of all types. Our government is choosing to build. Our government is choosing to get it done. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today, and may God bless the people of Ontario. Thank you.
We'll now go to reporters' questions. If reporters could please line up at the microphone behind me. If you could please identify yourselves by name and outlet. And just a reminder, it'll be one question and one follow-up. First question.
Good morning, Premier.
Good morning.
Simon Dingley from CBC News, sir.
Hi, Simon.
Hi. One of the revelations in this week's Auditor General's report is that lobbyists working for developers have emailed political staff suggesting amendments to the legislation, and political staff passed the wording of lobbyists to deputy ministers for inclusion in the legislative packages. What does this say about how your government makes policy, and why are unelected developers allowed to influence legislation this way?
I'll pass that over to the minister.
Yeah, as I said a couple of days ago, sir, there's a big difference between asking for information and disclosing government policy before it is. And we acknowledge in the Auditor General's report, it talks about changing the process around how we accept information. We're going to continue to work with the Auditor General. I'm not aware of the particular bill that the auditor spoke about in her report, but we're going to again cooperate with her, gain more clarity on the recommendations. But we've already started to implement them.
Second question for Mr. Clark. Sir, the Auditor General's report found that more than 600 requests to remove land from the Greenbelt have been submitted to the Housing Ministry since the Greenbelt was established in 2005. Only 22 were actually considered by the Greenbelt project team, and 21 of those were brought forward by the Housing Minister's Chief of Staff, your Chief of Staff. Why were these select few developers able to get access to your Chief of Staff?
Well, the report indicates very clearly something that both the Premier and I and our government have completely acknowledged, the fact that we moved too fast and there were severe flaws in the process. So we recognize that to be the case as part of the consultation, which resulted in that information that you so aptly quoted. Again, we're committed completely to ensuring that the recommendations get moved forward, but as well, the other priority of the government, as the Premier notes, is the fact that we can take two paths. We can ignore the housing supply crisis, or we can continue to build, and we've chosen to continue to build.
Good morning, Premier. Good morning, Minister. This is Nitin Chopra from Prime Asia TV. International students are also a big force here in Canada, in Ontario, and you are working, because they also need housing, and you are working on that. Now, recently, Northern College has withdrawn offer letters to more than 500 students, mostly across the globe and India also, due to overbooking, resulting in monetary loss and mental pain to so many families. Last year, even Auditor General, they pointed out supervision, lack of audits, and so many shortcomings. Will you and Ministry of Colleges and Universities make some strong decisions to ensure the quality of education is not compromised? Thank you.
We have a very close working relationship, and thank you for the question, with my ministry and the Ministry of College and Universities. Minister Dunlop and I have had many, many conversations, and as you can see, Minister Dunlop visits many of our colleges and universities and talks about the need for housing opportunities. We're going to continue to work closely with her. We've got a number of challenges. The other challenge in the housing sector is labor. We need to graduate more skilled trades in our college and university system. We need more planners, more plan reviewers. We need a whole continuum of workers to help support our plan to build at least 1.5 million homes. But I can assure you that the issues that you bring forward are top of mind for Minister Dunlop.
Thank you, Minister. Question to Premier.
Thank you. I just want to add on to the minister's comments. One that stands out is the University of Guelph. You know, the city of Guelph refused to put a housing permit or approve a housing permit right on the university's grounds for the students. That's unacceptable. So we need to build more housing for our students.
Premier, recently you announced that 40 new adjudicators for the landlord-tenant board, but seems it's not working. Reason is there are so many cases of a landlord suffering in the hands of professional tenants. They feel that LTB is still not effective and landlords have very few rights. If any tenant don't pay rent for consecutive 2 months, why can't they be evicted right away? Because right now it takes 8 months to open the file, and some of the landlords, they met you also in the previous event, and they need a strong action from the Ontario. He can.
Before I hand it to the minister, I'll just address this. I hear it from hundreds and hundreds of people, and we aren't talking about big corporations. We're talking about individuals that might buy a condo, might buy a home, and they rent it out. And then there's, people that are out there and they just won't pay the rent. And they go from place to place to place. That's just not right. We're going to continue fixing that issue. Because what happens if they don't pay their rent, people can lose their house. They can't pay their mortgage. And it's just not fair to these small landlords that are just trying to get by. But I'll pass it over to the minister.
I assure you that that my ministry, but the Landlord Tenant Board under our fantastic Attorney General, the Honourable Doug Downey, as part of our last housing bill, we made a historic investment. We're essentially doubling the amount of adjudicators that are before the Landlord Tenant Board, and then as well, a very important addition to that are additional staffing to be able to help process some of these applications. I think the best thing the government can do for both landlords and tenants is have a very efficient working tribunal that moves forward. By doubling the amount of adjudicators and investing that $6 million, which is a historic investment for our government to see the results that you're worried about.
Jeff Craig, Globe and Mail. Maybe start with the Premier and then we'll go to the Minister. I've covered homelessness for a long time. I know every single one of these beds will make a difference. Is having a lot of trouble. And I don't mean to minimize that, but we also know that one of the reasons you're announcing this today is part of a communications push to try and get your message out to counter the Auditor General, the information in the Auditor General's report, to try and get your message out about to help work.
First of all, we're out constantly announcing this. There's no surprise that we're out announcing every opportunity well before the Auditor General's report that we're going to build homes. We have over 500,000 people coming here. And I just think of the young people, the newcomers, the people that have to ask their parents and grandparents for support for a down payment. Sometimes that's not even enough because of the cost of houses, and it's very difficult. And I'm sure in this area, and Councillor Butt would know better than I would, 2 million, sure, you might be able to then move to a home, but it comes down to supply and demand. We need more homes to fill the requirements of over 500,000 people that are coming here each and every year, and anyone that has grandchildren, that's a newcomer, that has children, they know exactly what we're talking about. Supply and demand, we're going to continue building homes.
And thanks. Another question. The many shortcomings that the Auditor General outlined, maybe both of you could address this one.
Sure.
Looking at that, looking at what you were trying to do on the Greenbelt, how would you do it differently if you could do it all over again?
Well, I think I admitted that the process could be a lot better, and we're already moving on the process. We've taken 14 of the 15 recommendations to move forward, but this comes down to one thing, is making sure that we build homes as quickly as possible. We're going to have 150,000 people living in those lands. We're going to get billions of dollars of infrastructure, of schools, of a hospital, of long-term care, of parks. That's what they're bringing to the table. And most importantly, they're going to bring 50,000 homes. People will have a roof over their heads. And the other area that we can dictate on this land, that 10% of the build has to be affordable, has to be attainable homes, not just homes that people can't afford. So I think this is a good news story. Yes, I've admitted numerous times the process could be a lot better, which we're moving on. But the good news story is there's going to be 150,000 people with a roof over their heads that they otherwise wouldn't have.
Sure. I'll try to lump both in. You know, the reason we're here is we've got an amazing partner in Indowell who provides exceptional wraparound services for our most vulnerable, and I think we need to celebrate that and highlight the fact that our government has great partners like them in this space. You know, I want to echo what the Premier said as well. We're going to have billions of dollars of community improvements that are going to be paid for by the landowners of those properties. But at the same time, we have a tremendous relationship with our municipal partners. We've got two municipal councillors here. We've got the largest municipal conference in the country, being the AMO conference, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference, in a couple of weeks in London. We need every level of government to work together. So, you know, you can see the amount of work that we've been able to do with our federal colleagues, with our other colleagues in other provinces and territories. This is an all-of-government approach, and it's a government approach that transcends just our province.
It's Cynthia. Auditor General's findings that wealthy developers were given How is your government any different from what you've been railing about all these years?
Well, first of all, I disagree with preferential treatment. Those are. Oh, okay.
Disagree with the Auditor General's report? I thought you accepted the Auditor General's report.
I'm saying the way you phrased that, no one had preferential treatment. What we're doing is trying to build the 50,000 homes for people that need it. And the number one issue out there, Cynthia, is affordability, followed by the economy and jobs and healthcare. You know, I've seen a lot of numbers, and you've seen them, and polls flying around all over the place. And their number one issue is affordability. That's what we have to focus on. And we're going to continue doing that. We're going to continue building the 1.5 million homes for average people. Now, it's ironic that you mentioned what you mentioned, because the previous government, when they changed it 17 times, they changed it for their buddies to build mega mansions, which mega mansions aren't happening on this property. They built it to change to a golf course, a golf dome, and a Jiffy Lube. We aren't doing that. We're changing it to build homes for people that need it, the hardworking working class that can't afford a home. It's as simple as that.
So the Integrity Commissioner is considering your request at the urging of the Auditor General to investigate or consider investigating Minister Clark's Chief of Staff. Is the Chief of Staff going to be the fall guy here? Because it seems to me really unbelievable that he worked alone and did this all on his own without any supervision or anybody else having any knowledge of what he actually was doing.
Okay, I'll pass that over to the minister.
I'd like your answer as well, Premier.
I want to make it clear that that we are moving forward on the 14 recommendations. My chief and I continue to work with and collaborate with the Integrity Commissioner on the investigation. The government moved very quickly on that recommendation yesterday, and we'll continue to work with him, answer his questions, and assist him in the investigation. But at the same time, we've got 14 recommendations that we need to put the transparency back into the system, and we've already started, and we're going to continue to keep doing that.
Premier, but is this Chief of Staff going to be the fall guy? Is he going to be the guy that shoulders all the blame for what you said was a flawed process?
Well, first of all, we're going to follow the recommendations. One of the recommendations were to have the Integrity Commissioner look into it. I know he's in the process of been doing that for the last month, or probably more than a month, and we'll take his recommendations. So let's see where we go after the Integrity Commissioner's report comes out.
Matt Ingram, CHCH News.
Hi, Matt.
Burlington Mayor Marianne Mead Ward rejects your claim that Burlington's not building houses fast enough. I'm wondering what you say to that and why you singled her out the other day.
Well, first of all, I really like Mayor Ward. I think she's doing a fabulous job. But when everyone else is hitting their targets of 90%, 100%, 80%, 70%, and Burlington's 5%, I did have an opportunity to talk to Mayor Ward, and she's going to be getting together. I think it's next week with me, and we're going to help her. She's not a bad person. She's a really good person, actually. We get along quite well, and she does a good job. But the numbers aren't there. Now, maybe they're waiting for something. If we can help them out, then we're going to help them out. But when there's just a glaring difference of 5% versus everyone else, all other 28 large municipalities, we have to address it.
Mayor Horvath in Hamilton released a statement calling on you to cancel your plan to build on Greenbelt lands in Hamilton. That was the will of the municipal council. I'm wondering why your government won't respect the will of the local people.
Well, first of all, before I hand it over to the minister, let's talk about Hamilton. There's one block in Hamilton, they call it the Greenbelt, which is an absolute joke, and I'm going to bring a picture next time I'm in front of the cameras. There's houses on all four sides. In the middle of these houses, folks, there's an empty field. When I was door knocking over and over again, they said, do something with this empty field. It's 10 acres or something. But that's what they call Greenbelt? No, that's not Greenbelt. That's an area that we can build homes for people. And by the way, if I'm not mistaken, Hamilton Council put a resolution forward to take it out of the Greenbelt and build it. So, I've been getting along real well with Mayor Horvath. I'm going to continue getting along. But you can't say, do one thing and then change your mind and say you can't do anything. And I encourage the media to go to this area, take a picture, and tell the real story. Tell the story. This is called the Greenbelt. It was flawed. They know it. We know it. The previous government knows it. That's why they changed it 17 times. We've increased it by 2,000 acres. And by the way, the Greenbelt, this is all privately held property from the previous government. Imagine this. You have land, and you've had it in your family for generations. And all of a sudden, the government comes down and says, they slap something called the Greenbelt, and by the way, you can't do anything. And they don't care if they invested their life savings in it. Is that right? No, it's not right. No one would agree here in Streetsville or anywhere else in the province if we came along and slapped the legislation down and said, by the way, you can't do anything to your property. That's not fair. Do you want to?
Yeah, I just want to add that we have a great relationship with Mayor Horvath. She wholeheartedly supports the housing pledge in the city. As was said on many occasions, 9 of these 15 sites have been widely communicated by local councils and local communities asking for development on it, some of them going back decades. There are resolutions from various mayors, letters from councils, and so on and so forth. And as the Premier said, these are privately owned lands, but they also, using the nonpartisan Provincial Land and Development Facilitator, will be able to have billions of dollars of community benefits, roads, transit, parks, healthcare facilities, hospitals and healthcare, long-term care. There's going to be a lot of back and forth between the Provincial Land and Development Facilitator, the local municipalities, and these private owners. But the landowners are going to bear the brunt of the billions of dollars of community benefits as part of that negotiation.
Hi, Naira Ahmed from the Canadian Press. I have a question for Ford, but you can go ahead and answer it as well. So given the questions that my fellow reporters have asked, you guys have acknowledged what's in the report and said that you've accepted most of the recommendations, and you did what was necessary to address the affordability crisis and also talked about the previous government's roles in this. I'd like to know why the regional planners and municipalities and your own housing task force are on record saying that Greenbelt lands are not needed to achieve your 1.5 million housing target. So what's your reason for pushing ahead given all this?
Well, you've got a housing affordability task force. The report's now 19 months old. Since that report, you've had the federal government indicate a huge influx of new Canadians, which we want to welcome. But, don't take my word for it. TD Economics, the National Bank of Canada have all acknowledged that our numbers need to change. We need to have another 500,000 homes being built. And we need to be mindful of those other reports. We need to be mindful of the data we receive from CMHC saying that the number might be closer to 1.8 million. Things are changing. There are forces, as the Premier said in his speech, that are out of our control, like interest rates. But again, we need to work with everyone. We need to work with municipal planners and municipalities. We need to work with the federal government on getting shovels in the ground. And to the Premier's point about Burlington, we need to have not approved projects, we need to have started projects. You'll always hear me talk about housing starts. That's the metric that our government needs, because you need to start that house to be able to build up at least 1.5 million.
And would Ford like to comment on that as well? Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you. As the minister said, that was 19 months ago. I didn't know 19 months ago we're going to have over 500,000 people show up, and it looks like we're going to continue having 500,000 people. It's as simple as that. Supply and demand. We have to build more homes. We're going to build more homes, at least level the market off. And I'm just wondering if you own a home or if you rent, you want to own a home. Every person in this area wants to own a home, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure it's attainable and affordable for people like yourself and other people to own a home, own a condo, and rental, purpose-built rentals too. We need. So that's what we're doing.
So despite all the experts saying that you don't need to do this to build the 1.5 million homes, you continue ahead.
Okay,
Do you not think
hold on,
that...
one second. I'm sorry, please, go ahead. So you keep repeating the message, and I'm going to repeat our message. That was 19 months ago. 19 months ago, they said that. Since 19 months, all of a sudden, more than 500,000, probably 800,000 people have arrived in 19 months that we didn't expect. We didn't expect 504,000 people to arrive here. Now, no matter if you're in running a government or running a business, you have to read and react. You have to move with the times. We have two choices. We can sit back and say, forget about this housing plan, and everyone for themselves. We never got elected on that. I'll tell you what we got elected on 12 months ago. We got elected, and we said it over and over in our campaign, we're going to build homes. We're going to build 1.5 million homes. We couldn't be more clear on that. We wrote every single day, and I don't think 1.5 million is going to be enough. I think we're going to need probably 1.8 million. Either way, we're going to continue building homes. But thank you so much for that question.
Thanks.
This will be the last reporter.
Hi, Alexandra Heck with Mississauga News.
Hi, Alexandra.
Minister Clark, you mentioned housing starts as being a key metric. What we're hearing about lands that are slated for development that are sitting idle. Would you support putting timelines or deadlines on completing projects?
We've indicated that the housing pledge, it's a 10-year pledge. It's not a one-year pledge. So we need to ensure that there's a plan in place with local communities. And that's why, as the Premier and I both said, we want to work with communities. We want to work with Mississauga to ensure that they're set up for success and that they've got shovels in the ground to meet their housing targets. So, we're willing to continue to meet with municipalities, continue to hear their concerns. AMO is going to be a great opportunity. And as well, in terms of Mississauga and Brampton and Caledon and Peel Region, we're going to continue to work on the transition board to get them where they need to be.
Are there suggestions that you're considering for ensuring that there are as many housing starts as there are approvals?
Yeah, we want to ensure that municipalities are set up for success. The Premier and I have said it many, many times that we favor the carrot versus the stick. So that's why we're going to continue to meet and consult. And we made a promise to Ontarians that we'd build at least 1.5 million homes in the next 10 years. We also made a very direct promise that under the leadership of Premier Ford, a re-elected government, under his leadership, we'll have a housing supply action plan each and every year. So we'll continue to build upon those 4 housing supply action plans. Our transit-oriented community program, where we're going to be upzoning around transit. We're going to continue to work on strong mayor powers for municipalities so they can get shovels in the ground faster. And we'll continue with our audits, with our transition boards and with our facilitators to make sure that all municipalities are set up for success and that they can all do their share.
How about one more question?
Thanks.
Sure, I'm okay with the question. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, thanks, Premier. I've got 2 questions. I want to talk about the housing in a second, but
Yeah.
this column I'm working on today is 6 homicides in Kirkland Lake. Drugs, bail, crime. I've never in my life heard of 6 homicides in a small town like that.
Yeah,
It's a crisis.
absolutely.
It's not headline news. I think that's
Yeah.
maybe your fault this week, but it is very serious, and I want to know what you're going to do about it.
Well, first of all, my prayers and thoughts go out to the families that lost loved ones. But I've been hammering this bail reform from day one. I led the charge with all the premiers to put this forward to the federal government. I want to thank all premiers, all 12 premiers that signed off. And I want to thank all the police for sacrificing every single day, going out there, protecting our communities. So it's sitting at the federal government right now on their laps. I have all the confidence that the new minister, Dominic LeBlanc, will move this forward in a rapid fashion. But you see a lot of these people, are out on bail. They get a slap on the wrist. Do you know what else is really ticking me off lately, Joe? Are these home invasions on these car thefts too. People are getting their cars stolen right, left, and center. Now they're so brazen, they kick the door in at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. Imagine you being in your house and your family, and you have a little one, Joe, the panic it goes through. Well, I have a message for these guys. We're going to catch you, and you're going to jail, and you aren't going to get a slap on the wrist. You aren't going to get out on bail. We'll do everything in our power provincially to keep you locked away as long as possible, and we're going to put an end to that.
Thank you, Premier.
Thank you.
Second question, it can be for both of you, but the part that I'm having a hard time understanding is, because I know both of you for a long time and how you operate, what would be so wrong with these developers to sit down, almost like you did with Ron Taverner and other things that didn't quite go the way that people thought they should have, and just make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed so that there is transparency?
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time. Is it because things are shovels in the ground already, or money transfer? What's the reason for not doing that? Just go back and do it the right way.
Well, first of all, Joe, I appreciate that. We've admitted that we're going to take the 14 recommendations out of 15 to improve the process. But I'll tell you what we do need. We need to make sure they build those homes. And that's a message to the people, the landowners that have these properties. You don't get shovels in the ground. We don't see progression rapidly. That land's going back in the Greenbelt. Simple as that. So that's a clear message. I can't be any more clear than making sure that your projects move forward. And it's critical that we build 10% affordable, attainable homes. It's critical the billions of dollars that you're going to put into the infrastructure side and building schools and houses and hospital and long-term care. We're going to get it done. I promise you that. As sure as I'm sitting here, we're building homes for the people out there that can't afford a home. And the other thing that's really burning my backside are these mortgage rates. Keep hearing rumors that they may, and hopefully they won't, raise interest rates again. That's unacceptable. They talk about inflation. They don't know. Bank of Canada and the governor doesn't understand inflation if they continue raising these rates on the hard-working people. They're already seeing prices of groceries go up. They see gas prices go up. Just imagine, folks, we didn't cut the 10 cents a liter of tax. It'd be another 10 cents more. Just imagine if we didn't return the license sticker vehicle stickers there, or we didn't cut the tolls on the 412 or 14 or 418. We're a government that takes care of the little guy, little gal per se. We're going to make sure it's affordable. We've created an environment and conditions for 700,000 more people working today than they were 5 years ago. That's what we're doing. We've been so blessed as a province. There's no better jurisdiction in the world to come and raise a family, start a business, get hired by a great company, and most importantly, put a roof over your head. And by the way, I think one reporter asked me the other day about immigrants. They don't buy homes. You got to be kidding me. I almost fell over at the podium here when she said that. My email was inundated. My messages were inundated by new Canadians, immigrants. And one, Deepak Anand, my MPP, his story was he came here, him and his wife worked their back off, had 2 jobs, got better schooling, and rented for 2 years, and then bought a townhome for 3 years. So, yes, immigrants buy homes, they buy condos, and I just couldn't understand. I was dumbfounded by that question. But anyways, folks, thank you very much. And again, God bless the people of Ontario. Take care.